Hello, everybody. My name is Rian Finter. I am Director of Post-Sales Support at Adaptive Computing. For this video, which we call a training video, we will be looking at deploying E4S on a cloud provider using a specific application. And that would be an E4S application. Now, maybe some of you have become familiar with E4S. Right now, we've got about 123 packages available within the E4S image. And I want to show you how you can access that via the adaptive solutions from on-premise using Moab as a scheduler and its user interface viewpoint, as well as the interface into the cloud. In this case, we're going to focus for this video just in the cloud part of it and using one of the options by deploying E4S on AWS. In this case, we will focus on using a specific application. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen over here. And then we can go through the process. Share my screen. Right. And now that I'm sharing my screen, what you see over here is the login to our on-demand data center solution. And just that you know, this is actually running in our data center in Florida, United States. I'm sitting in South Africa, by the way, managing it all from here. And this environment, as I said, is running in our data center on a VM. And I'm also using our Moab suite on another VM, the two communicating also in the same data center. And again, this architecture can be used in such a way that you can actually set it up within a cloud environment or one in the cloud, one on-premise. It all depends on how you want to set up. But what we've done over here is we stood this production environment up that if somebody onboards, I will create them a login using on-demand data center as well as my Moab Viewpoint environment. And you can actually make use of E4S applications using on-demand data center and Viewpoint. So let me go ahead and log on to the on-demand data center side. Login and password, and I'm logging in as an administrator, by the way. Let me type that correctly. Right, so what we're going to see over here is now I'm logging in, and this environment is already stood up, as I mentioned, available. And as we onboard somebody, you will be able to, we'll set up a cluster for you so that it's pre-configured, it's available, and you can actually just make use of this. And the clusters that I'm using as examples, but it will be very similar than that. So we are going to use the Amazon one, and you'll notice that there are multiple cloud providers here. So on-demand data center is not restricted to one provider. So it's Amazon, Google, OCI, and Azure. And in this case, we're going to focus on our Amazon cluster, which is, by the way, in Canada. Now, if you look at this cluster, the cluster is deployed. Head node is available 24/7, and my compute nodes are actually down. Now, this is one of the features within on-demand data center that we call bursting. Now, as soon as we switch on bursting when the cluster is deployed, we take down these two nodes. The ODDC does that, and it remains down until there's actual workload that actually comes through. You'll notice here in the queue, workload coming in, and as workload comes in, on-demand data center will start up these in conjunction with Moab on-premise that tells it, listen, there's some workload I'm passing it on, but start up these nodes first. All right, so and you'll notice these two nodes are standard VMs, T2X large, and you'll see that even a application like one of the E4S applications is called Tau, runs very well on these VMs. So it doesn't mean you have to use the GPU, but you can absolutely. And you'll see that it actually runs well. So that doesn't mean all your scientific applications need a actual GPU. Some are built for GPUs with absolutely no problems. All right, so now I'm going to jump into my Moab Viewpoint side. Now, this is where I was talking about Moab as a scheduler. Some people might be familiar with Moab, being around for many years as an HPC scheduler. and with the user interface called Moab Viewpoint. So I'm going to log into Viewpoint as well, also as an administrator. Now, this will be, as you would think, what you see from a CLI point of view as well. Traditionally, people would use Moab from a CLI point of view, but the user interface makes it a graphical view available of your workload, and you can do everything you do from a CLI point of view from Viewpoint as well. Over here, we can see the current workload that has run, or at least it gives an overview with how many nodes are available, how many jobs, whether they are actually running or not. And I can look at my current workload, which there's nothing running right now. Now I can view, and there's multiple, I want to call it features within the whole Moab suite. So we're not going to go through all of that right now, but we're going to focus on, as we call it, application templates that we make available for somebody that we're on board, so they can actually deploy E4S on a cluster, either just as deploying the cluster or actually making use of an application that they want to load in the background, so that when you get onto the head node or compute node, you can actually start working on that. All right, so now you'll notice over here, there's multiple nodes over here. I'll actually make this just a little bit bigger so that everybody can see that a bit better. There are all the nodes that we saw within ODDC. My scheduler is aware of them. I've also got some on-premise resources over here, two A100 GPUs. And within the Viewpoint environment, as I mentioned, there's something called application templates. Now, we do make some standard ones available when installation gets done, but we've added some extra ones here for this purpose more specifically. You'll notice I see a lot of other applications, but when I onboard you as a user, you'll only see 8 application templates. There's 4 and the next set as part of deploying E4S in the cloud. Now, this first set says deploy E4S on AWS, Azure, Google, OCI. So that means you're not running an actual E4S application, but you're just starting up and deploying E4S on a cluster. And then the next set is on the next page over here. You can see that this one says submit E4S on AWS with an application, Azure with an application, Google with an application, OCI with an application. Now, the one we're going to use is this one called submit E4S on AWS with an application. So as an end user, you would have access to that, and you see that, and it's simple as clicking on your workload. You say I want to create a job, a workload, and it will give you the same list of application templates you can select from. So I'll scroll down to our set that we want to use for this training video. So this one says submit E4S on Azure. Go further up, I want to use the one that says submit E4S on AWS with an application. So I'll select that. And remember, the application templates are of such a nature that it can be adjusted, changed, configured with either opening up areas where we can get the end user to type in certain information or select something. So there's many different ways to set it up. In this case, I've just given information. This cluster has got 2 nodes, 4 cores each, not changeable. But in the list of E4S applications, there's already 10 in here. So we're busy building them up to 123. But right now, I've already added the first 10 in here. So I'm going to just choose one of them, maybe let's say just Quantum Espresso. Now what that will do then is it will start up E4S in the cloud and just load Quantum Espresso as an application in the background in your path. And then you can log into the head node, and we've got a graphical interface into that where you can interactively work on that cluster. So I'm going to go ahead and create this. Now that will kick off some jobs. You'll see that it's kicked off a specific job that will be processed by my cluster or by my on-premise cluster, meaning being managed by Moab. So if I click back onto my workload, you'll notice that now there are 2 jobs in the queue. The first one is the actual job that contains the application that needs to be loaded. First one says power, so that's a power up job, and it's the active one. So my Moab on-premise scheduler is communicating with my on-demand data center. Listen, there's something waiting. We need to start up some resources. Now, if I jump back to my on-demand data center, now you would notice previously they were down, and now we're actually busy deploying those two nodes. So that instruction has been sent from my on-premise scheduler saying, listen, there's some workload, start up these nodes, and that job within my scheduler will remain eligible and remain as a scheduler, so we can set up dependencies. So this guy is dependent on that one to complete, meaning my nodes are started up. So this takes around about 5 minutes for a compute node. Typically, that's very standard within the cloud providers to actually start up. But in the meantime, because these are my compute nodes, I can actually get onto my head node in the meantime. So let's have a look at that, and I can show you around there. So we've added something called OpenVNC Viewer within the on-demand data center side. Now, what this is, gives me the opportunity to connect via VNC into a Ubuntu Desktop environment, and it's asking my same login details that I was using on ODDC, and then my password. And I can send my credentials. Now, this is starting up this Ubuntu Desktop, as you can see. Let's make it full screen, you guys can see it better. So this is actually a Ubuntu Desktop that many people would be familiar with, and this is actually on my head node. So I'm actually, as you would typically do a SSH from command line into the head node, same thing, but it's a graphical view, and it's running on the head node of compute nodes. We're using Ubuntu in this case. I can start up a terminal over here. So let me just open up a terminal over here, and let's make that bigger as well. Now, within this environment, we can immediately start looking at what, from an E4S point of view, is available. And you can see over here, it's on the E4S AWS Canada, and that's the head node we're on. Now, a command called Spack find -x. We will list the actual applications that are available. Now, you remembered I mentioned 123. So in the Amazon environment, there are already actually some of these packages that are already GPU enabled. So if I do, for example, Spack find -x, and I say plus CUDA, that will show me just the ones that are, let's call it GPU enabled. So you see 43 of that 164 are actually GPU enabled. The rest are the normal standard E4S applications. And as I mentioned, with that application part, I said, okay, load Quantum Espresso in the background, so it loads it. Or you can come in here and do the load from here, right? So you can do that, or you can search for a specific application. So let me do Spack find, and I want to see what about OpenFOAM is available here. It will show me if OpenFOAM is there and which version. So there's one installed package, and it's version 2306. So that's just some basic Spack commands that you can use. And obviously, if you're more familiar with Spack, you'll know that if you want to load one of these applications, there's a command called Spack load. And many of these can be loaded, or in some cases, you do Spack install the application, it gets installed, and then you do a Spack load to actually use the application that gets loaded within your path. Now, as an example, just to see how the graphics actually works, we do have some examples in here. So let's have a look under opt, my opt directory in here, and we can have a look at what is available in here, and it's within my demo directory. And I believe within here we've got a directory called examples. Yep, and within there I've got some example of these E4S applications that's got some sample input data. So let's go into Tau, as I mentioned, is one of the examples, and you'll find that there is actually a input data example that's in here. So I can use something called paraprop, and I can use that input data over there. And this will actually go ahead and start up the paraprop application using that input data. So immediately you can see the application coming up. So let me make this bigger as well. Now, this is a application that actually assists you with kind of looking at your code and how it actually runs. We can look at node 0 here, for example, and if I look at that specific node and I say 3D visualization, now this is the part of where the E4S guys knows the applications very well, but this is just to give you an idea of immediately you've got the graphical view, and I'm on the head now, right? And I can move this around, right? So you'll see that as I move it, it moves this graphic all around, and I've got different views of this graphic and multiple options that you actually can do. A bar plot, and I believe this is scatter plot as well. That shows me, and you'll see there at the back a little red dot. So let's move this around a little bit. Here's a dot that obviously all the processing happens typically over here, but there's a little section over here that actually a lot of processing happens for a long time. And then there's a topology plot as well. Now, this is just to give you an example, and obviously you'll be working with one of the applications that you're familiar with and that you need to work with. All right, so while that was happening, if I go back to my terminal over here, and I want to start up a new terminal, so let me start a new window here. Just to show you that in the meantime, remember we started up, so I'll jump back to my on-demand data center side. Our nodes were busy deploying. Now you'll see that they're actually available, meaning my compute nodes are available. So I'm going to go back into my terminal over here, and I can check what is my compute nodes addresses. So from the head node, I can SSH into it. So I can SSH into, let's say, 10.1.2.74. You'll notice that is that compute node. It's 1. And because it's up, I will be able to SSH into that. So now you can see I'm busy SSHing directly into the compute node itself. And that's busy loading. And now you'll see at the bottom that I'm actually directly on the actual compute node. So you can use it as just running a workload, having your input data available already, or reading your input data from some file server somewhere, or set up the environment that the input data is actually on the head node available, and you run it on the compute nodes, and you access that input data and then generate output data, and then use these graphical tools that are already available within the E4S package. All right, so and that's what I wanted to show you for today. Now, remember, we spoke about I spoke about these nodes are being deployed, right? And when they are actually there's no more workload being done, you'll notice while we were watching, now it's busy destroying. So in this case, I've had it set up for a very short time, for 3 minutes, something we call idle purge. So it's set after 3 minutes, nothing happening. Let's get rid of those nodes, and without me doing anything, fully automated. We will obviously, when we onboard somebody, we will set that for around about an hour for a start, and if there's a requirement to make it available for longer, absolutely, then we set it up that way. If you may need to run some processing for a longer time, as if it's actually doing an interactive workload. And I want to end at that. So you will see the whole process. Now my nodes are actually down, completely down, and we're back to saying, all right, I want to run a new application, and now you'll see the power off job was busy processing, and shortly that will be completed from Moab. That told on-demand data center, listen, there's nothing happening on these nodes, so let's actually take them down. And you can determine that period that you want to keep it up, how long we want to keep that up. All right, I want to thank you for listening to me. If there's any questions with the videos that will be shared, there will be contact information, or we can set up a quick one-on-one training sessions if required. Looking forward to helping everybody with access to the E4S within any one of the major cloud providers. Thank you very much. Cheers, bye.